I'm Tom, and let's go over this boxing league thing one last time, because I think there's a fair bit of confusion around it, a bit of debate, and a lot of reasons as to why it wouldn't work. Let's start with what it is first. Those of you that don't know, Dana White and Turki Al-Sheikh have come out saying they're going to make a boxing league called TKO. They're going to be using a belt. Now, a lot of people were saying that the belt they'd be using would have no substance around it. These are the belts have history. Well, actually, they're going to be using the Ring magazine belt. We saw Turki Al-Sheikh had bought that earlier. I've got the magazines. I've got the posters, all that sort of good stuff. They are good. We saw that he announced that a while ago, back end of last year. So he's now got that. They'll be using the Ring magazine belt in this league structure. Now, a lot of people have been saying that it won't work in boxing because boxing isn't MMA. There's way more active fighters and the weight classes are too vast, right? I hear that, I really do, but because the league's going to be there, that now doesn't mean that Matchroom, Queensbury are just going to fold. That doesn't now mean that every other fighter that's not in the league, TKO, is going to just stop fighting. There'll still be operations just like there is in one championship, just like there was, Bellator, PFL. There'll still be other organizations out there to compete with the league. I just think the league will be the top echelon, just like with the UFC. The weight classes is different. We'll come back to that. But I do think the league structure, and I'm worried about Dana White being the man, but I think the league structure actually is going to work. People say there's just too many fighters in boxing, whereas UFC's not got that. But that's because we need to look at MMA as a whole, not just the UFC. I think what's going to happen is these 4 belts, they're not going to just disappear. They'll still be around. But what we'll start to see is these 4 belts are going to be kind of the rundown from the Ring magazine, TKO, boxing league. Fighters will still come through, fight for the belts, fight in their various weight classes, fight for Queensbury and Matchroom. You'll still have fantastic British level fights that are happening outside of the league. And when you get to championship level, world title level for the WBC, just like you do with PFL and things like that, UFC will probably, just like UFC sweep in and take their best, we'll see over there, the boxing league, TKO, will then start to take the best. You've got people, the young champions now, that will start. They'll start by taking these guys, the young champions now, paying them big money, and that will then become the sought-after division. The top fighters are in the boxing league. And you'll still have your WBC, your IBF, your WBO, whatever it is. They'll still be around with your Matchroom, your Queensbury. And what will happen is when you get to that sort of top tier level there, you'll step into the TKO league. The Premier League, if you will, for boxing, like UFC. It doesn't mean just because there's 500 active fighters or whatever it is, probably more than that, in boxing, you got to squeeze it all into the league. No, it's just that the best will be in there. The weight classes is a bigger concern for me. Dana White wants to get it down to 8 weight classes. Now, off the top of my head, I can't remember what those 8 weight classes are, but I don't think that's going to work. We don't need 18 like we've got now in boxing. That's too many. But 12. I don't think we should have quite as many as 18. I don't think we need one every sort of 3 pounds down at the lower divisions. That is a bit crazy. I think there should be more equally spaced out. And I think there should be maybe 12. Do you know what I mean? I think there should be maybe sort of every 10 pounds, something like that. It doesn't need to be quite as many as we've got now, but certainly I think UFC isn't the right way of doing things. I think UFC could do with a couple more weight classes. And it would also help with the sheer number of boxers, right? Having the sheer number of boxers that we have, having those couple more weight classes does help. It is beneficial. We have got too many though. So that's my thoughts on the weight classes and the league kind of element. My concern is Dana White. Dana White notoriously doesn't pay his fighters well. Now, boxers get paid too much. I do think that much is true. I do think certain boxers get more money than they should be getting. Yeah, I do. But I think Dana White's structure for paying fighters is really bad. Really bad. The no sponsorship. I'm worried about how the sponsorship's going to look in the league. Someone like AJ, where he's sponsored by Lucasade, Under Armour, Hugo Boss, He's going to need his sponsorships. That's going to be a huge part of his revenue. He won't be able to just go into the league and forego his sponsorships. I'm really hoping Dana White doesn't have the same pay structure that he had in the UFC, but I think he will because he's a money-grabbing knobhead. I don't know the guy personally. He actually seems like an alright, as a person. His freedom of speech, or the rest of it, I don't mind that. I just don't like his money structure, especially when you're looking at boxing, because boxing is more dangerous than UFC. UFC, you're focusing on joints, focusing on MMA, focusing on like arm bars, submissions. Whereas boxing, it's just punching someone in their head. They need to get paid for that. So I'm intrigued to see about that. The more information that comes out on this, the better. But I do think it will work. And actually, I think it's good for boxing. I do. I really think it's good for boxing. I don't like the millions of divisions we've got. I don't like the millions of divisions that we've got. I don't like the millions of champions that we've got. I mean, how many active champions are there currently in boxing versus UFC? We've got too many champions. No one knows who really the top guy is. We've got too many divisions. That's why people can just bounce up 8 weight classes. Well, I'm making it sound easier than it is, but you get the idea, like 3 or 4 weight division champions isn't uncommon. Too many weight classes. So they automatically both get sorted out, the 2 big areas. You also then have total control. So you can then look at things like the scoring system, judges, referees, and they can be sanctioned appropriately, whereas at the moment they're just let to go. But most importantly, the best will fight the best. That's what I like. So I actually think it's good, and I think it will be successful. People, your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you leave a like, a comment, subscribe. YouTube works, people. Peace.